And welcome back to the Women of Water Get Real virtual summit, where we're walking through where and why are women leaking from the water career pipeline, and how to get them back, how to what are some of the alternative career paths? This is something we touch on that a lot of folks talking about women in water, women in the water workforce, they don't talk so much about entrepreneurship. And I think this is something that's really exploded in the water space in general, is support for entrepreneurs. But we're still not seeing as many women as we could, but we have a fantastic example with us here today, Liane Thompson, who is joining us from the other side of the globe. So it's 11 o'clock at night there. And so right before we got on the camera, we're getting real here. We're putting on makeup, we're scarfing down lunch, we're doing whatever we need to do to get ourselves ready. But we are here, and we're so glad that you're here, Liane. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. My name is Liane. It's how it's pronounced as Liane. I know it's spelled strange, like Liane, but it's pronounced Liane.
Letting me know, and we're getting real here. So, again, it's Liane.
Yes.
Yes, Liane. Okay, I got it right. Fantastic. And so tell us a little bit about your story. You're one of the folks that I kind of stumbled across on the web. You did a great response to a question about funding and for climate tech, and we'll get to that in a minute. But let's start by giving us just a little introduction about your story as a woman working in not just in water, but getting into entrepreneurship, and how did you get to where you are?
Oh, how did I get to where I am? So Aquai is my company. I'm the founder and CEO, and we build data harnessing robotic fish-like platforms that carry a payload of cameras and sensors. And the aim is to protect our waterways and habitats. How I got here is my partner. So my life partner and my work partner and my partner in the company, and who's also the chief visionary officer of Aquai, is a roboticist and special effects, climate person. And I met him doing a story on him. I had a whole nother career before I had a robotics company. I was a journalist. And I met him doing a story on him. And it came about shortly after he had promised our daughter, or his daughter at the time, to take all his ingenuity in robotics and mechanical engineering and what he knows in the climate, and to build affordable systems for both science and commercial blue economy use cases, so that we could protect waterways and protect the seas. And a lot of times the issues actually start in fresh waters before it gets into the ocean. So his whole mandate was to build affordable systems that could have a larger impact. And I just kind of got into it because I met him. As I said, I was a journalist, and I had also worked with the New York Times, for the New York Times on staff, and I had a very large division in television in New York City with quite a few people in my department that I managed. And so it made sense that I'm handling the business aspect of the company, and Simeon Pieterkosky, my partner, is handling all the technology.
Got it. Interesting story. Yeah, I don't know if you know. So my background was as hydrogeologist and engineer, and working my way up. Got as far as I could get in the global firm I was with. Hung my own shingle for a while. That was interesting. And then realized the opportunity to do more stuff online, with events and programs and education and everything. But that adult education is primary in the media, right? That the first places that adults turn to when they want to learn something is online. And this is where, at a time when a lot of the news, New York Times and everybody else was trying to figure out how to go digital. We've been in this space for a while doing the digital journalism thing, but it is an interesting mix of, getting to understand the science and the value, why it's important to do the work that we do, and then being able to communicate it, translate it really into something that is more of a journalistic approach that is going to attract people. That got to have the right lead, you got to have the right way of presenting information, so people say, "Tell me more," right?
No, absolutely. And so also I think when you go from being a journalist to having a company or as an entrepreneur, there's quite a bit of skill set that is transferable, whether it's getting access. As a journalist, you're always trying to get access. You're also having to understand the story, having to understand and do deep dives of research, if you will. As an entrepreneur, you have to always know what's going on in the market, how to get access to investors, how to tell your story, whether it's to investors or to customers, on how you can help solve their pain points, if you will. Or there's just quite a lot of skill set that I learned as a journalist, that I now use as in running a company. And you mentioned kind of getting the word out. So when we started, I don't come from a water background, if you will, and nor do I come out of the MIT Stanfords of the world, which are kind of, if you do, you have an easier time in fundraising and stuff. So to get on the map, I used my journalism, my skill set, which was, we made our first unit look and swim just like in Little Nemo. Everybody loves Nemo. It could tweet your picture, your face, take your picture and tweet it. And it really, people kind of, oh, what's this? It's really cute. And so even as we've progressed as a company and our units are much more sophisticated now, our autonomous underwater vehicles, we keep the color scheme of the Nemo because it's still inviting. And I think we kind of have branded the company as the robot fish couple, or the robot fish lady is, what I'm sometimes referred to. And I've actually been able to get investors by constantly writing them over periods of time going, hey, it's me, robot fish lady. This is our update. And that sticks. There's something sticky about that when you talk about putting things on the web or getting the word out. It's what's sticky. So a lot of what we've done at Aquai, long before we got any investment or customers, was think about, and Simeon also comes from special effects and animatronics and robotics as well. What's sticky? Our first unveiling in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho at Think Big Festival, we had dry ice out on the stage. We had a huge fish tank. We had our Nemo looking tweeting fish, and did a big show. And a lot of that kind of, and that was for it was people from DOD, people from a lot of different walks of underwater drones, and it was something where people remember us from. So I think a lot of it has to do with getting the word out and branding and the message.
Oh man. And and it is so important to get that right and to have it actually be relevant to what it is that you're doing. I think it really is not that long ago in the water industry, and in some of the associations it's still there. You have the booth babes, right? Or you'll have the magician, or you'll have a little play or something. It has nothing to do with the actual product. It's just get them there. And then the technical sales guys will sit down and kind of, try to work things out with the client. But there are really fantastic strategic ways, and even more so when we do it online and you combine the online with the in-person, and they say, oh wait, I saw that person online, I want to go there, right? That you don't want to separate the marketing from and the branding and communications and outreach, whatever, from the product and the decision makers. And I think that's one way that, especially women with technical backgrounds, and if they happen not to, especially those who are not introverted, and I can be a little extroverted at times, it's like, oh, you're good at communications, go do the proposals. Oh, you're good at communications, go deal with the client, go deal with the team, whatever. We'll take care of the hard technical stuff, right?
Well,
But it sounds like you guys are working on it together, and that's a good thing.
so what we have, how we do it here is that I do handle quite a bit of I guess some of the, if I have to do an event, I'll be the person who's talking about the technology, talking about the business, talking about what we're doing. Also, you know, the business, we do a lot of the decision making together, the strategy together. Simeon clearly has more the background in the technology, but you have to be able to, a lot of times, you have to be able to translate the technology to whether it's an investor or your customers. So I think where we've been fortunate and successful is that we're able to speak to our customers in the case of, you know, if we're doing sustainable aquaculture, and we speak to them coming from a perspective of understanding, not, you know, coming with some really technical, you know, we want, our aim is to be the John Deere of the waterways. So what is about John Deere? You know, the tractor was one, the John Deere was for you anytime you needed a John Deere. And it was simple. You had the rabbit, you had the turtle, you know. So for us, it was about building a system that was usable, easily, and not not overcomplicated everything, which a lot of technology companies tend to do. So in translating that information in a way that everyone can understand has been very advantageous for us in getting customers, surely.
Right. And you know, there's something really unique about doing technology in the water and environmental space. This is not just about, oh, neato cool gadgets, right? And it's not just about, this is going to make a lot of money for our VCs. And obviously you want to show that you can be profitable, but there's also a social and environmental benefit aspect to that. And you've got to speak to people's, you know, their heads, their wallets, and their hearts, right? So how do you make sure you're really conveying the value, not just the monetary value, but how it's going to make the world a better place and still make money?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, a lot of times you're speaking to a few different people. So there you have maybe the LP who really is focusing on, you know, how can we improve the environment, limited partner, so the person who puts the money into a fund, right?
Okay.
And then you have the fund managers whose real goal is to make the LP the money back. So the fund managers are really mostly about the spreadsheet, not the bigger vision. They all might say they're about the bigger vision, but, you know, let's face it, they're really about making certain that they get next year's LP check as well, because it's their job. You know, that's how they get their paycheck. That's how they put their kids through school, right? But so let's say the limited partners are the ones who might tend to take more of a risk. And if you can get to them, great, because then you're having a discussion about the climate, what really matters, you know, in terms of the bigger risk. The bigger risk is that you don't invest, and there's nothing out there that's really able to help mitigate some of the climate crisis, and we need technologies in order to do so. So that's the one. And on the other hand, when you're dealing with funds, especially venture capital funds, you know, while they used to be about taking more risk, nowadays more and more of them are less likely to take risks, and are more about, you know, protecting their LPs. What's the spreadsheet? What's the numbers? And there's a lot of noise around being about the climate, protecting the climate. But even a lot of those climate impact funds, the first question out of their mouths a lot of times, even to me, well, what's the revenue? So, you know, if you call yourself an impact fund, of course, it's always important what's the revenue, but it shouldn't be your first question. It should be, like you just said, what is your social, what is your environmental impact if you're in, you know. So I guess we've been doing this long enough. I'm not as naive and green in dealing with venture capital or the such, that I'm cautious about how I'm relaying my stories based on who I'm really talking to. It's not enough to be a climate fund. because I found that it's actually the climate funds that are more sticklers than the ones who don't run around claiming to be climate funds. I don't think, have raised any money from a climate fund, whereas I have raised capital from other funds, whether it's those that invest in women, whether those who invest in underrepresented individuals like women, or those who just are really about moonshots and our future. Adam Draper, Boost VC, all about, we were one of his first ocean investments because, like I said, constantly updating, and finally he wanted to make an ocean investment, learned about the climate, and was like, okay, 4 years you're sending me these quarterly updates. I want to invest. So it's, I guess what I've learned in doing this is that it's about who you want to have a partner, more than anything else.
Yeah. And so it's been a while now, so you are getting those bigger VCs. But when you got started, and for a lot of women who are maybe thinking about being part of the Great Resignation, or they've had some great idea and they want to get into the entrepreneurial realm, and we're an entrepreneurial company. I mean, doing online events and online, this is highly technical stuff, although people don't see what's going on behind the scenes, right? That makes it flow smoothly. But we got into this, people like, oh, we only fund water technology, but you're media, so you can write stories about us, and we're not going to give you any sponsorships, any money, or anything. Just promote us, please. Actually, they never said please; they just said just promote us. But when it comes to how did you get started? Who were the ones who gave you? Did you bootstrap it? Was it based on money that you guys had earned in your prior careers that you were able to bootstrap, or did you have an angel? Did you go with any of the government funding? I mean, there is a lot of like SBIRs and, okay. Tell me your story. How did you started on that?
So, it's always different. Okay, if you look even now, I think Climate Capital comes out constantly with this great weekly, or maybe it's monthly, where the investment goes into the climate. It's seldom into water technologies. So the more that we can talk about and what you're doing, the more that there are these outlets about water technologies, it is so necessary, because it's not enough just to talk about carbon. It's not enough just to talk about, some of these other climate technologies, planting trees, which are great. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying we do need more avenues to teach investors about the opportunities in water technologies and the need for technologies to protect our waterways, fresh and marine. How we got started was, knocking on a lot of doors. Yes, we were able to put everything into the company based on some previous career work, truly. But at the same time, we have raised a very, very small amount given where we are today. And that has come through NREs from customers, prepayments, non-reoccurring engineering. So they help you build and modify your technology. You retain ownership, but it's a non-reoccurring kind of engineering cost that you can bill a customer for a modification of your existing technology to apply into their use case. We did not do SBIRs or government grants, primarily because as an underwater autonomous vehicle, which what we are, we look and swim like fish. We carry a payload of cameras and sensors. Technically, we're an autonomous underwater vehicle, and we wanted to be able to operate globally in many harbors and different waterways and rivers and whatnot. And so for us, it was, and we decided not really to take any governmental funding, especially in the US. There's that little small print if you take government funding, that your technology can be used if the government needs it. And as a dual use system, I didn't want to risk the company for that. And we do not work, I should add, with military defense at all. So that was another.
You don't have little marine Ant-Man kind of.
No, just fish, but
so that they can ride your little fish.
No, we don't work with military defense use cases at all. And we've been able to grow through some, like I said, some really special, unique angels, people who believed in us, believed in the technology, saw the need of the technology, and a very few really forward-thinking, early stage, VCs. And so we're not with the big, we're not raising funding from some of the major, later scale. We're still seed company. We are, we grow through customer down payments now mostly, and our customers have also invested in us as well. So that's how, we probably are growing slower than what most venture capitals would like, especially those who don't understand water or hardware, which is about 90% of those in the US anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, especially when you're doing water, you do have to start small. You do have to test things out. Because if you screw it up, it's not like rolling out new Coke, right? And say, oh, oops, sorry, we made a mistake. We're going to go back to old Coke and we'll call it Coke Classic, right? You can't just go viral and explode all over the place with something and then find out that, oops, sorry, this did something bad to the environment or whatever. So it, in that respect, it might make sense to kind of grow at a pace where you can adapt and test, and that's how we do it, right?
So we actually do all live testing. We build it and we throw it in the water. And in fact, on our year 4, I think it was, we were founded the end of 2014. It was 2018, so only 4 years in, we did our first long testing cycle, which was in the north of Norway, in the Arctic Circle, where we were able to get our first customers. So here we are, U.S. company, Delaware Sea, based out of California. Our first customers is in Norway. So we brought the team, moved onto an island in the Arctic, in the rim of the Arctic Circle, through the units, built 8 robots in 6 weeks, I think, lived there 2 months on the island, really understanding our customers and what they needed, and then left the units there and basically said, break them so that we could learn. And they were there for about 8 months in about, I would say, out in the shipping lanes, very rough waters, really good location to test underwater vehicles, in fish cages, no less. And we really learned a lot, but we were able to get some significant testing done that way, again, through our customer interest and always live testing.
Okay. So we are here at a summit on women in water. And to be able to get money, to be able to get a client that is willing to let you test things, to be able to, what has your experience been like? Have you ever gotten comments, pushback? Did they go to your partner instead of talking to you? What has that journey been like as a woman, and especially in this space, looking for investors?
Okay.
And customers, for that matter.
let me take them in the order my brain will remember them. So, where we did our trials in Scandinavia, in Norway, it was an amazing experience for us. We really were able to test the units. As a woman CEO, no problem whatsoever in working with people from Norway, Scandinavia, especially in terms of the gender issues that we face in other parts of the world, let's say, and especially in the US as well. Yes, there are times that we'll be at meetings, and I know a handful of times, New York, California, whatever, where the person will look to my partner about the financials and the questions in the business aspect and our projections, and he understands technology. But as I said, when I was with the New York Times, I had about I think around 200 people in my division that I was an executive producer, and I was producing hundreds of hours of television for all the major broadcasters. And so I had hundreds of people working in my department, and I had all the budgets and had to manage the people, the budgets, the deliverables, and everything. So I kind of understand spreadsheets. And it would, it gets
also not a very woman-friendly industry, when you get to the higher ranks of actually being a producer, right?
No. I mean, it's not, that's, yeah, not a problem. But I think it's different. I have to say, I do think that business in the traditional sense, venture capital or whatever, is much different than, let's say, journalism, and even business and journalism. But I do find that as a woman in water, I think in aquaculture there are quite a few women. At least I feel like there are, which it's very embracive. It's nice. I love all the women that I've met in sustainable aquaculture. Clearly, other aspects of water are not like that. But where we have our initial market penetration and customer growth is in sustainable aquaculture, and we'll also reinsure. So we were approached by global reinsurers, and even then it was a woman I was speaking with out of Princeton. So that was magical. So I love it when I am finding other women in the industry, and I like to say I grew up with brothers and my dad, so it's I can relate to the man's world quite easily, but it does get annoying, I think, the older you get, where you have other there's gender, and then there's ageism, and then there's all these other layers. But I never found myself even in the gender role. I covered conflicts. I was in the same foxhole with everyone else. It didn't matter what sex you were. If you were going to get shot, you were going to get shot. So I didn't really have to have that. But in business, it's a little bit different. True.
It's funny, in our generation, we haven't compared ages or anything, but I mean, I remember growing up, if you wanted to do the cool stuff, you tucked your hair up under a baseball cap and you were one of the boys. You weren't out there trying to be sexy or feminine or anything else. It was this is work. We're one of the boys, we're on the boys team. And now you've got the younger generation coming up, and the GRRRRLs, right? The girls, the girl power, do they do things a little differently? Or what are you finding in terms of who's getting the money? People have been around for a while, people who have real on the ground experience, and then we got some of the younger folks just out of their MBA, got a nice flashy pitch deck. I
know I'm not getting all the money, so I don't really know. I mean, I think with me, it's not even about so much that. It's more the simpler technologies. My bigger beef, I think, in the space is about the stage of where money is being deployed. So it's going to like the idea, oh, I have this great idea, here's 25K. Or if you already have millions and millions and millions being generated in revenue, then, oh, here's some more money. But what we call the gap, like in commercialization, I find that to be more challenging. And especially when you're looking at water technologies, it's costly. And there's that area where you have to go from, 25K isn't going to do it. You really need to have some capital to commercialize before you can get to the growth stage. In terms of who's getting the small early stage money, there's so many accelerators out there that if you don't do an accelerator, then you kind of are squeezed out of being able to receive investment because you're told then to go to an accelerator. But if you already have market penetration, so you don't really need someone to tell you how to get to the market because you've got customers, but so your value of your company is higher than, let's say, what an accelerator, most accelerators want a chunk of your company at a very early stage. But if you already have so much traction, you don't want to give, you're not going to do an accelerator because it's not founder friendly at your stage. So there's so many different layers. And in terms of the whole, like I said, I have teenage daughters, or actually they're not teenagers anymore, 20. But yeah, they do think differently than my generation. My generation, I was a tomboy, and I also, used my gifts to get where I needed to get in life. That was just the way it was. And I think that this generation is doing things much, I don't know if it's much smarter or clearly it's different, but it's also, I think it's accountability. It's, we were able to get through a lot by just either being outspoken or pushing our way, and I think we didn't really call out accountability. We got what we needed, where we wanted to by sheer will and pushing and and I think the younger generations are going forward, but they're holding the whole ecosystem more accountable. And you have to admire that desire to hold things accountability, or to hold others accountable for words, actions, lack of action, lack of consideration, whatever the case may be. And when I say consideration, I don't mean niceties. I mean looking at deal flow, in that sense of, considering the deal. So,
yeah.
Does
it go too far?
They're way better at social media.
It's like when, I mean, if we're trying to address, okay, a hurricane is coming, and what are we going to do? Or climate is changing, we need to make some changes. There's a time to just get the work done, and then it's like, oh, stop, we have to stop the meeting now. This person, posted something online, and then they deleted it, but I screenshotted it to make sure that everybody would see that they used the wrong word for this or that. And it's like, we are dealing with some really important stuff here. We are literally saving the world. What's that?
Well, I think it's important to point out that the world is a big place. And not everyone all over the world acts, let's say, the way we do in the US, And I think that's important to understand that I'm building a global company, okay? My customers are not in the US. I think that the more we from the US can step outside of how we think everything is and see how it is around the world, you will see that the world is going like lightning. And whether it's robotics, whether it's in climate technologies, and the US is too busy arguing about what somebody posted on social media. So it's kind of sad that I have to, as a US company, get my first customers in Europe or Scandinavia, grow my company in other places because the demand is coming at me constantly because I have a autonomous system where other parts of the world are just moving fast and forward with integration of autonomous systems in robotics, while
Oops. Oh, hang on. Did I lose you? Oh, can you hear me? Oops. I think we locked up for a second there. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can. Boom. All right. Hey, let's see if we can get her back. Hold on, folks. This is technology. She's in Thailand, by the way. So we might have her, she might drop off and come back on. So you heard her making some really great points about, going where people award you the projects because they're ready to spend the money. They have understood what the crisis is. They are ready to, innovate. And we can get caught up in a lot of other stuff. And that doesn't always help to grow a company if you've got to worry about, who posted what on social media. And I mean, obviously you don't want to do anything extreme. But are we really rewarding innovation? So I'm going to give her a couple of minutes to come back. While she's coming, I'll let you guys know that I had been on a part of an incubator that was a woman-owned, woman-led incubator in San Diego. Spent 6 months working through each and every part of the business plan and the marketing and the messaging and the branding and this and that. And different people would come join us every week. And then at the end, we did this big, and it was either women investors or those who wanted to support, particularly women investors. And one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of it was focused on femtech, we'll call it. Okay, it was either things that it was okay for women to be leading a startup because it was beauty products, or it was health products, or it was parenting products, or it was technology related to women. Right. So there was a woman who had this cooler caps thing that, so that, would keep women's hair from falling out when they had cancer. There were things of better menstrual products and things like that. That's okay. But when we get into the water and technology space, I have been following the startups for a long time. Good friends with Sally Gutierrez, who was head of the EPA program, because we're watching it go from basically Cincinnati and Milwaukee to having these startup clusters all over the country. And over, I go to their big events, and maybe there'd be a couple of women-owned, young women who are like, well, I'm going to save the planet by creating an app, and then every time you use the app, you put in push a button, and it bumps up your change, and it donates it to a charity to do something related to water, where they might not even known what that something was. Just said, oh, look, I'm saving the planet because I use this app, right? As opposed to those of us who actually gone through school and grad school and everything else to try to really understand water science and technology. And I'm going to just check really quickly. There she is. She's in the waiting room. She came back. All right. So that story, we'll continue with Liana now. And here she comes. Let's see where she go. She is. So while we were getting back in, I was just telling them about my experience with an incubator. It was actually started by a woman in biotech who'd done really well. And she got all these women in San Diego to be venture capitalists or angels, really much more at the angel level, to help women startups. They had an incubator program. And then some of those would graduate into Ad Astra, their kind of higher level, the one where they actually get money. Oriana Bretcher, if you've ever run into her, she came out of that program. But most of the companies were, it's okay if women are entrepreneurs if it's related to family, related to beauty tech, related to femtech, right? Products related to feminine needs or breast cancer or whatever. Have you found interest in getting more women on the financial and investing side of putting money into women-owned businesses and women-led businesses in the space.
So I do know Ariana, and I also have an investment from Ad Astra. Vidya Diamani she actually invests personally first, and then she's part of Ad Astra, so they came in a bit as well. I think that if we could have more women who were approachable to support other women, that would be great. I was just saying today, you have a lot of support for Latino women and Latino funds, which is great. I know also Arlen Hamilton invested in Aquai, and she has Backstage Capital, which invests in estimated founders, and she's also invests quite a bit into people of color and the gay, lesbian, and women, and all of that. All this different, like I said, we call not underestimated.
Underestimated. I like that.
Underestimated, yeah. And I do know that women are hard to approach online. For every 100, LinkedIn clicks I give to, sorry about that, my kids. I give to try to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, 9 times out of 10, the male will accept and can start talking about what we do and, all of that. And most of it's harder, maybe 4 times out of 10, the woman will accept. So I do think that women need to become more risk adverse. I do think women need to be also less packish, meaning
or less risk adverse.
Less risk adverse and less packish, meaning group and thought. Whereas, you can have a conversation with somebody who individually will invest. Women tend to like to invest with a whole group of other women. It's not very often you'll find like a super angel.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the networks or the angel funds of the group of women, and you don't find a lot of super angel.
Smaller gifts. It's almost like a grant. When if you say, well, I need this much, it's we'll give you this to start. It's like, but you can't really get started with something that's more like the size of a grant, right? I mean, you find that women investors are investing smaller amounts as well. I'll give this for your little project there, as opposed to, we believe in you, we believe in this company, this is going to go forward, and we want to be part of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I can speak to that really. The investments I received from some of these women-led funds are kind of what their earlier mandates were and the check size that they wrote. I do think that we need to have more female super angels, for sure. We need to have more females who have had exits, who are putting in money into moonshots or to harder technologies, and not, some of the investments that you mentioned, or just software. I mean, we can talk about hardware investments in general are very difficult in the US. Certainly in Silicon Valley, which is, mostly software. So I think the bigger issue is hardware. It'd be great to have, more women in hardware investing into other women in hardware, surely.
Yeah. I wonder if more women who have a lot of money are more likely to tend to say, well, I want to give all my money away and put it into charities versus saying, hey, if I have this money, I can grow that pot of money by helping women and helping with these new technologies that are going to make an impact. I mean, they like Melinda Gates, or okay, I split up with Bill and now I'm going to give away all that money. It's like if that money had been put into investments, boom, right? I don't know how many women are on that list of women who actually have, the money to be able to take some of the larger, the super angel kind of risks.
Yeah, I mean, I know that if I ever were in that position myself, maybe in my future, I think I would be doing solo investments. Definitely. I don't know if I would join a necessary, fund like, I mean, some of those groups, but I can't speak to, I'm not a nonprofit. So sometimes I think, oh, if I were a nonprofit, I might have an easier time because, but
yeah, I don't know. Well, we ended up switching over to the nonprofit side, and it didn't get any easier because then we're competing against the big nonprofits and the ones that have grant writers and all that kind of stuff. And it's like we still got to come up with a flashy pitch deck, whether you're doing it for grants or family foundation, or whether you're doing it for.
There are some wonderful organizations that are very supportive. Like there's Women's Unite on Facebook, which is a great group of women that it's probably my favorite that I go to in asking questions and support and things like that. So there are some groups out there. I mean, like I said, I have never been much of a women's group joiner type of person. So can't really, I mean, I was a single mom before Murphy Brown and Madonna made it hit. I just did my life. I didn't think about gender at all, ever. So it's so awkward for me to talk about women in that and women in that. I never had the conversation of women in journalism before, or women in war. Or, I mean, it exists maybe now more. Maybe it's a generational thing. And when I just did my thing. I was doing something that most women weren't, and I just did it. So I don't really know how to think. So I do know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, do what you're passionate about. Be able to get in there and do what you love.
Yeah.
So how many people are in your firm now, in your company?
We scale and decrease depending on need. So it really depends on what we have going on right now. We are focusing mostly on bringing in that capital. We have purchase orders that we need to deliver on. So once we can start doing the hiring for all that, we'll have I need to hire about 10 to 15 people to make, to bring in, and execute the units that we have ordered. We at any given time, we have 8, not all on full time. Again, if we're building, if we're designing, everyone's in. If we're marketing, it just depends on what the need is. And we do a lot of, work with other groups to keep ahead of the curve.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the things I see a lot is some of these younger women-led startups, and then they'll find guys. I don't see them approaching a lot of women who've retired. They'll find men who've just retired from, head of a utility or something, to come on as an advisor. So you have like this, young women running it, and the older guys as the advisors that look good on the on the board and letterhead, and then come with them for meetings and all that kind of stuff. Do you often get women? Also see a lot of women in charge who tend to hire more women than when a man is in charge of a company. Does that ever come into your thought process, or is it just
no,
consciously or unconsciously?
I have a handful of women that I turn to, and men. For me, it's just, okay, who's an expert at this, who's an expert at that, and that's where I look. But I don't know how. I don't think like that. So I'm not aware of that, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, I really appreciate your being here and sharing with us all these insights, because this is one of the alternative career pathways. We talk about people leaking from the water workforce or the water career pipeline, and in some cases, if they're not getting opportunities within large organizations, becoming an entrepreneur can be a way to go. It's not easy. It's going to take some time. It's probably going to take a lot more money in the beginning than you think it will. If somebody tells you, oh yeah, you'll be, making, replacing your salary within 6 months.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
I suppose, I mean, just you got to love what you're doing, or there's no point in doing it. So if, people do career change, I mean, I did a massive career change, from journalism to having a robotics company. So you have to be really focused, trust your gut, love what you're doing. I don't, do it more than just for the money, because I know from my experiences, we put everything back into the company. And it's not like I'm sitting on a nest egg because of my company. But yeah, I think that as the climate issues, are more on the forefront, certainly in the US, finally, there is a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of water. There's room for everybody. We need more technologies. Clearly, we need more smart city integration of waterways into smart city management, which opens the door for many different integration of systems and autonomous or whatever, wastewater, you name it. And I just think that it takes a village, as I say, and I do think that everyone should be helping out each other and protecting our waterways. It is our source of life. It doesn't matter what gender, but we just really need to all kind of roll up our sleeves and get in the thick of it and build the systems and deploy the systems and mitigate the risks and to protect our waterways so that humanity can survive.
That's beautiful. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all the work you're doing. I think a lot of our viewers are going to have found a new hero here, a new role model. And of course, we'll have your information on the page where you're watching this today. So, if there's if there's a link or anything where people can connect with you if they want more information, is there a web address or anything that you want to give out at this point, or should we just stick it on there?
AquaAI.com. Best find me on LinkedIn. The usual Twitter, Instagram, the whole bit. We're there. And yeah, I'm pretty open that way. Liane at Aquai.com, LIANE at AquaAI.com. And you'll have that when you send that. But thanks for having me. And yeah, thank you so much. And I appreciate the invite and the conversation and moving women forward in the water space, and look forward to meeting other women in the water space as well.
Fantastic. And for all of you watching, go ahead and type in the chat. Where are you coming from? What's your story? Are you thinking about going with a startup at some point? Would you like to join somebody else's startup? You don't have to go out there all by yourself. There's people who are hiring. How to really make your contribution to the world of water. That's really what it comes down to. Is that everyone who wants to be a water professional, regardless of gender, race, age, anything else, should have that opportunity. And so anything we can do to help with that, please do type in the chat, and we'll be able to follow up with you and answer your questions. And we're so glad that you're here. So thank you, Liane, and thank you everyone here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us for this extraordinary conversation, one of 45 extraordinary conversations we had as part of the Women of Water Get Real virtual summit, where we explored where and why women are leaking from the water career pipeline, how we can stop those leaks, and even bring women back to water. I hope that you will enjoy all of these amazing interviews. If you don't have a chance to watch all of them during the summit, you have the opportunity to join us with a power pack and get lifetime access to all the videos, as well as an opportunity to join us for 30 days in a brand new community where we will dig even deeper in live facilitated conversations about some of the issues that are facing women in water. Look forward to seeing you there. Please join us at watercitizen.org/women, watercitizen.org/women for more information. See you again soon.